Good morning. It's great to see all of you on Facebook and on Zoom. If you missed yesterday's session, it was great. It was neat to see the artwork from six brand ambassadors and what they came up with. It was very, 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 very nice. Today we have Lowell. Lowell is one of our newest brand ambassadors. So welcome, Lowell.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And would you like people to ask you questions as you're painting, or would you like to have them afterwards?
I love questions. Ask away.
Oh, that's beautiful. Fantastic. And so we're going to see some Lowell's work. Ethel,
Mhm.
is that right?
Yeah. So we'll do the screen share first. I'd like to invite our friends here to follow Lo on Instagram. She's very much active there. Just look for more_art_yo. And as we always do here, Lo, we have sample artwork. Some of these artworks here are recent works, and feel free to share anything about the pieces here. We start with this.
Thank you. So this one is actually walnut ink and ultramarine blue gouache on mineral paper, which is a paper made from rock. It's really beautiful to work with. Next slide, please. And this one features walnut ink as well, with some potter's pink in the floral at the top. The theme of this one is about blooming under stress. So I used walnut ink and bloodstone genuine for kind of the soil and this beautiful bloom coming from the top. This is walnut ink and ultramarine blue gouache on cotton paper. So in contrast to a couple slides ago, it's just really interesting how the surface that you use can make such a difference in getting different behaviors out of the materials. This is a favorite. This is another walnut ink piece with a lot of layering. So the layering and the walnut ink are my favorites. They're in my wheelhouse, and we'll be doing a piece kind of in this family today. So lately I've been doing a lot of ikebana inspired arrangements, the Japanese art of flower arranging. I love the everything about it. And so this was one of the early pieces exploring that theme, again with the walnut ink and layering with a lot of a special little red mix that I can show you today in those flowers. Thank you.
Hmm. So Lowell, anytime you'd like to start, that'd be fantastic.
Sure, I'll switch cameras. You might see a little hiccup for us. I'll bring it over and turn on the lights. All right. Sorry guys.
Excuse me, Loel.
Okay. All right.
Quickly, if we're going to paint along with you, would you suggest hot press paper or rough press paper?
I am going to use Arches 140-pound cold press paper today, but anything will work actually. So pick your favorite, I think. Favorite cotton paper.
Thank you.
So, like Ethel said, I'm very active on Instagram, and another place to find me is our local Gallery at the Park in Richland, Washington. And I will start teaching there on September 20. I'm pretty excited about that. The first class will be about walnut ink and using that with watercolor and gouache. So keep an eye out here. I don't think registration is open yet, but it will be very soon. So again, the walnut ink and the layering are just my favorites. And so I wanted to point you, before we get started with the demo piece, toward some mixes that do layer, some pigments that layer really, really well. So to get started, Carmine, Phthalo Blue Turquoise, and Quinacridone Gold are a really great little trio to begin with. And I won't go through all of these mixes in detail to leave time for the demo piece. If we have time at the end, we can maybe come back. But the beautiful thing is I can take these three and I can combine them in any way and get a beautiful little rainbow of colors that I can do this layering technique with as well. And but wait, there's more. If I take those three, my Quinn Gold, my phthalo turquoise, my carmine, and if I add phthalo blue green shade and quinacridone burnt orange, now I have a layering powerhouse. And I'll tell you why. Effectively, all I've done is given myself the chance to use Quinn burnt orange without the P150. So Quinn burnt orange is a component of the Quinn Gold. And so by pulling that out by itself, I'm letting myself mix without this bright nickel azo yellow. And similarly with the phthalo turquoise, phthalo blue green shade is an ingredient already in the phthalo turquoise. And so I'm letting myself mix without phthalocyanine green yellow shade. So beautiful, bright greens and yellows. But if I remove them from the equation and let myself mix in any combination of any of these pigments, then I can get some richer, warmer mixes for layering. So the phthalo turquoise, or sorry, phthalo blue green shade, twin burnt orange. Now I can get some beautiful olives, richer blues, some kind of periwinkle, plenty of purples, a nice red, and so forth. So these five, Quinn Gold, Quinn Burnt Orange, phthalo turquoise, phthalo blue green shade, and carmine, are a really great way to get started. So we're going to layer with carmine today, and that same basic technique would apply to all of these mixes. Pick these back up and we'll get started with our demo piece. So today's palette, we're going to use walnut ink mixed with Bloodstone Genuine, phthalo blue green shade, carmine, green apatite genuine, and iridescent gold. And the piece that we're going to do is based on a poem. So I'm going to take this narrative and turn it into a visual. So I don't remember where I originally saw this sentiment, but when I went searching, because it stuck with me for years and years. I thought it was just a beautiful piece. That's the trouble with Earth. Nobody talks anymore. And so we've all become a bunch of unopened love letters. So we're going to make an unopened love letter piece today. I've been really into these single branch ikebana arrangements. In one of my books that I ordered, there was this beautiful passage about making a floral arrangement with one perfectly placed branch. And I was just really, really captivated by this idea. So a lot of my work is going that way at present. And so, just sort of talking about how to give these things personality, right? If I wanted to make a composition with, say, a proud flower, I might do something like this. If I want a happy flower, I might do something like that. I can make one that was sort of, sad or mournful, I have some pieces I've made that are, I call it the Head Bowed in Prayer series, where it's sort of meditative and thoughtful, right? The piece today, I want kind of a yearning almost, it's an unopened love letter, right? So maybe I'll have my vase here and sort of my single branch coming over, and then maybe, an unopened, flower bud of sorts to sort of represent the idea here. And to do that, then I start matching. I say, okay, here's my narrative, here's my visual sketch. What color story will I use? And so the carmine will be such a lovely little soft pink. I think it's the perfect color for an unopened love letter. This walnut ink and bloodstone genuine mix is something I use over and over. I love it for the vessels. I'm going to add some phthalo blue because I want to bring this down to sort of a gray green in the piece. Green apatite genuine, I love the way that it plays with the carmine. I won't necessarily mix them, but I can use one to help the other really pop. And then everything gets a little bit of gold. So there's that. And with that, let's get started. So my sketches, I usually sketch to the side not as much to write on my paper. Turn on some chat so I can see any questions you guys might have. And I will, though, draw on my tape. I will make myself some guidance on my tape quite a lot. So I'm just going to mark my thirds here and here. So I know that I want my focal point to be about here. I know I want to put my vase over here. I'm going to preserve my white space with rocks from my garden. Are we having focus problems? There we go. So these are just rocks that I picked up from the yard outside. Sorry, you guys.
Well, I'm wondering if you turn the light back on, if the focus will come back.
Yeah, the light is on, so it's
Oh,
great.
the light. Okay.
I apologize. You test things yet. So these are rocks from the garden. I'm going to use them to preserve my white space. So if I want my flower here, maybe I'll put a couple of rocks there. Over here, I'm going to have my vase, maybe some here and here. Okay. And then this is just the kind of spray bottles when you go to get your hair cut. Gosh, you guys, there we go. I'm going to place my water over the top, and then I'll remove the rocks and drop in my pigment. So this is just a really beautiful way to keep these natural shapes when I want to preserve some white space in my pieces. I love doing my backgrounds this way. So now you can see little pockets, where the white of the paper has been preserved. And so I have some green apatite genuine. This is my walnut ink and bloodstone genuine mix. I'm going to refresh that just a little bit. This one I usually do mix fresh. I find if I let it sit and rehydrate it, that the bloodstone genuine tends to, I don't know if it dissolves, but it gets more drama if I make it fresh. And I'll just have a little touch of the phthalo blue green shade over here. And this is one of the reasons I absolutely love the watercolor sticks. And you guys can see I use them pretty extensively. So I'm having a little bit of phthalo by itself. And then this is this nice olive gray-green mix that I mentioned, where I have my phthalo blue green shade. And then I will combine it with a bit of this walnut ink and bloodstone genuine. And so it's a really pretty gray green, you guys, gosh.
Lowell, do you have the ability to turn off autofocus somehow?
I don't think so. And again,
there we go. Okay, now it's focused for some reason.
All right, so I'll take my gray green and I'm going to start to drop it in to my paper, to my little wet spots. And then I'm just going to let my pigment really roll around on my paper. I want to make sure I get it all the way to the edges and see how that walnut ink is just starting to kind of separate out. So I get this really beautiful effect with the pigments moving through the water and the ink. And you can see the places where I put my rocks. Throw some more color in. And just really have fun with it. I have to say, I think this is probably a very Buffy inspired way to make these backgrounds with the pouring. And I'm really just going to let all the colors I put down flow and play. Maybe a little bit more dark over here. I'm going to go ahead and drop in some of this green apatite.
Well, I just wanted to read a couple comments really quick. Jane says, great organic white spaces using the rocks. And Sylvia appreciated you marking your thirds on the paper. She said, thanks, the golden section. So a lot of great feedback.
Thank you. So I'm just going to leave this really loose and pretty. And that's really it for the background. So now I'm going to cover it in plastic. So I've used the rocks to preserve some white space. I've got some lovely textures going on. And I'm going to cover the whole piece in plastic. So you can use plastic wrap, saran wrap. I prefer painter's plastic from the hardware store. The drawback is that you have to buy it in a lifetime supply roll. But I like it because it's very stretchy, right? I can get these nice lines in my piece. So I can pull it across and get these beautiful textures. Where my rocks were, I can come in and soften those areas, those lines. If I want to go a different direction, I can always pull up and make my lines go a different way. So now I'm going to get this sort of abstracted patterns of darker and lighter color when my plastic wrap dries. So this is just my favorite way. So I see a question, what color did I mix with the walnut ink? And that was the Bloodstone Genuine, right? Mixed with the walnut ink. And I put a little bit of the phthalo blue green shade to get this nice gray green. And so then I would walk away, wait at least a half an hour. Sometimes I'll make these in the morning and just come back in the afternoon to do overlays. We don't have that kind of wait time today. So I made a background this morning that I will show you how to do the overlay on. So I'll set this aside. Dry off my table.
What kind of wrap was that, Lowell?
Painter's plastic, the thinnest painter's plastic that I could find at the hardware store.
Painter's plastic. So for people painting walls.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
But again,
Did you
that was
press on it, Lowell?
what was that?
When you placed it, did you press it?
I stretched it, I pressed it, yeah, picked it up in little spots to make it go different directions. You can even pick it up when it's partially dry and set it back down, and you'll get beautiful little tiny air bubbles. So there's actually, I think it's kind of underrated. There's so much you can do to add beautiful texture by putting the painter's plastic on top. All right, so we're ready to come back to this composition, right? With the perfectly placed single branch. I'm going to start by making my vase. I'm going to refresh my walnut ink mix just a little bit. Put some more in here. Add just a little bit of water. And I have some Bloodstone Genuine from earlier. But again, I want it to be pretty fresh so I get a lot of granulation. So to start with my vase, I'm going to use this Escoda dagger brush. It's a synthetic. So all the other brushes I have today are the silver black velvet rounds. I really love these. The Escoda dagger brushes, I love the synthetics because when I press down, I'm going to get a texture with a lot of rough edge, which I quite like. I'm going to take advantage of that with the walnut ink. So I'm going to put down my water first and just make a really rough base shape. And then come back in with this walnut ink and start the vase for my piece. So the painter's plastic is actually thinner than the plastic wrap that you get typically at the grocery store, which is why I like it, because it's stretchy and you can really stretch it super thin and get a lot of good lines out of it without it breaking.
Lulric wants to know which Escoda brush that was.
It's Ultimo Synthetico number 10.
Perfect. Thank you.
So while this dries and has a chance to kind of do its mingly thing for just a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and put my branch in. To put my branch in, I want it to be loose. So I'm going to stand up so that my paper is further from my body. So if standing isn't comfortable, you can always put your paper like on a chair in front of you, or maybe the floor. The idea is that I want to paint from my shoulder, not from my wrist. So I'll go ahead and just a nice loose, and I want it to end with a real gentle little part at the end where I'll put my layered flower in. Yeah, these are some of my favorite brushes. And see how already the walnut ink, that texture that it gives along those edges, that's one of the reasons that I love it so much, is I can get some beautiful textures out of it. I'll mix it with Cascade Green, with Bloodstone Genuine, with Ultramarine Blue. Those are my favorites to use. I'm just going to pick up some of this excess in the interest of time. So add a bit more. Now I'm going to tilt my page. I have a little kind of water pocket still, or water puddle. If I tilt my page, I'm sort of fetching and catching that walnut ink and Bloodstone Genuine and bringing it to the bottom of my vase shape. And that's going to really bring out that granulation and give me more of these rough edges at the end. So maybe this one I want some contrast. I'll smooth it. So I get this combination of soft and hard edges. And now I'm going to let it dry just a little bit before I charge it with some green apatite genuine and phthalo blue green shade. So while we wait just a couple minutes, I can show you guys these other combinations that I mentioned, that Cascade Green and the ultramarine. Share my hands on the paint on them. This is an example of the walnut ink with the ultramarine. And again, those textures that you can get, this is on Bao rough press paper. So again, the surface really makes a difference. And it's just a beautiful combination. I'll grab some Cascade Green. So this is a nice example of the walnut ink mixed with the Cascade Green and how it separates so beautifully. And this also serves as a good example of, something I come back to a lot, which is choose your palette based on pigment, not based on color or hue. Like all these olives are really, these mixes are a very, very similar color, but they have different pigment chemistry, and that gives them very different behaviors, right? And so, yeah, this walnut ink and Cascade Green, I come back to again and again. Those are little favorite combinations.
Lowell, Linda is asking if you're using ultramarine gouache or ultramarine watercolor.
You can use them interchangeably. I prefer the gouache because the pigment load is so high that I don't need to use as much of the gouache. This particular piece, this one I did use watercolor. I wanted to compare the two, and I had to use a lot of watercolor to get the same effect. So either one will work, but you have to use a lot more of the watercolor to get the same effects.
So cool.
And that's just a pigment loading thing. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. So I love the way this green apatite is going to come in and kind of push the walnut ink out of the way. As long as I have some on my brush, I'll go ahead and throw some in here too. And yeah, so I love the textures, the texture of the plastic wrap, the texture that the walnut ink will give me. These little vases. And then another reason I quite like the watercolor sticks is I can get really rich pigment if I get my brush damp and draw it straight from the stick. So I'm going to drop in a little bit of this blue next to the green. So while this dries, I'll go ahead and start my layered petal element off here to the side. So for this, I'm going to use clean water. I'm actually going to scoot this over just a little bit to give myself some room, because all we need to see at this point is the carmine. I want to keep my carmine really, really clean. If you're layering these petals, it's really important to keep the carmine, pretty pure. And the carmine really, it can be a super rich, beautiful red, but to get it to layer, to get this behavior out of it, I need it to be a pale, pretty pink. Soften it just a little bit more. Notice I'm not outlining and coming back in and filling. I have a pretty watery mix. And I'm building it as I go. And now I'm going to effectively rinse, center away. So I'm not really touching my paper with my brush. I'm being really gentle with it. I'm just putting in some drops of water, tilting and picking up the excess with my thirsty brush.
Marcy says it's amazing to watch her brain work out all these amazing details. What a gift she has.
Thank you. So to put the next petal on, the first layer has to be completely dry. So I am going to use the hair dryer a bit today. That's part of the trick with the layering as well, is it has to be completely dry before you put the next layer on. And before I do that, because it will also dry every place else, I'm going to put just a couple more little blue and green touches in my little face over here. And I love how it's all imperfect and filled with texture. So I'm going to start low, and I'm going to then kick it up a little bit higher. And the reason I do keep a hair dryer on my table instead of a heat gun, because sometimes I actually want the air movement. I want the force of the air. So for example, some of the layering sometimes I'll do with an ombre, right? This is Indanthrone blue dropped into this Quinn gold. I'm actually using the force of the air to get this effect. Or when I work with the mineral paper, I'll use the force of the air. So you can use, a heat gun, but I prefer the hairdryer because sometimes I need the movement. All right, so now we can put our second petal on.
Lowell, I have a question for you.
Yes,
There's actually a couple questions about the mineral paper, which is made of calcium carbonate, correct?
it's 80% calcium carbonate embedded in 20% HDPE, which I think is the same plastic that like lawn chairs are made of. So it's
So,
rocking.
sorry, I was just going to ask. My question is, how do you like the way that the watercolors and the walnut ink act on the mineral paper versus watercolor paper?
Love it. I mean, they all have their strengths actually. So here I'll pull out an example after I dry this
Thank
petal. I'll show you. All right, so again, the same, put down my petal, very gently kind of rinsing it. And you can see now by doing so, I've got this nice line from my first petal appearing through. the second petal, this really nice transparency.
Did Lowell already speak to why she chose walnut ink? Did I miss that part?
What was that?
Did you already speak to how you began your relationship with walnut ink?
I picked it up originally because it reminded me of my grandmother. Yeah, that's really where it came. I saw on the shelf and my heart just went, oh, my granny. And so I brought it home and it was just the most perfect stuff. It's not necessarily a good childhood memory. We had this walnut tree, and of course it was one of these like farms. We used everything, and there was this constant forever tub of walnuts that we had to crack open and pick the pieces out, and so my hands were always just covered in the walnut sort of, well, I guess the walnut ink, right? So yeah, that's how I came by it.
Thank you.
So I don't forget to come back to it before we put the next petal on. I'll address the question about the mineral paper. Let me grab a couple pieces. So this is mostly phthalo blue green shade. There's also some neutral tints in here. And so you can see, and you asked about walnut ink. The closest thing I had to show is very similar. I'll just show the watercolor that the same story kind of goes. This is on cotton paper and this is on the mineral paper. And so the way that I work it, I can still get, gorgeous layers, but they're just much more ethereal on the mineral paper. And I ran a hairdryer for at least half an hour to get this piece, which is why I haven't really demoed it yet. I'd be happy to, and I'm happy to answer any questions about it. It's just not a very interactive process because I'm constantly pushing my puddle of pigment around on it. But the walnut ink is similar. The walnut ink won't come back over itself and make a layer as well as the really staining pigments like a phthalo blue green shade would. And to show you like the comparison, we looked at a few slides at the beginning, but this is this is walnut ink and ultramarine blue gouache on cotton paper. And this very same mix, believe it or not, it is in a glass. There'll be a glare, so bear with me. This very same mix is on mineral paper. So on the mineral paper, that blue really rises to the top very beautifully. And on the cotton paper, you can bring out more of the granulation and the beautiful gray in the mix. So I hope that answers the question. All right, so back to our little unopened love letter. So I'm going to start leaving some little gaps, give it some life. And I do love questions. If I don't answer one thoroughly enough, please do ask again.
You are a great question answerer, Lowell.
Thank you.
Do you ever listen to music as you're painting in your studio?
Almost always. I don't know what to do without it, actually. And all of it too. I can tell you guys what's on my Spotify repeat right now if you want. I'm especially a fan of the poets. I think once I discovered Iron and Wine, there was this phase where I couldn't listen to anything else for like 2 years.
Oh, where do you buy the mineral paper?
You can get it on Amazon or other art supply stores. You just have to Google it.
Oh, I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, so the UFO is all plastic and the mineral paper is rock embedded in plastic. So it's a tiny bit more absorbent, certainly not as absorbent as the hot press, but it is really, it's fun to work with. It takes a little practice. I think I went through the entire first package that I bought, basically ended up in the bin. It was for learning, right? There's never any wasted paper. There's never any wasted pigment. There's only learning.
Love it.
Okay, so we'll do one more petal after this one and then put some finishing touches.
I love this demonstration because it really shows that if we're patient and allow time, we can build up layers in very like watered down layers too. So this really shows the power of glazing. Thank you, Lo.
I think my question goes along with what you just said. I'm always amazed that people finish and get so much done in the time allotted. Do you think you're going to finish today? It's like a lot of paper to finish up with.
Lowell, the question while you were blow drying was, do you think you'll be able to finish up today? Because have a lot of fun things going on.
Miraculously, yes. I just checked the time. When you saw me switch hands, I was putting the hairdryer in my other hand so I could check the time on my phone. And I had the same giddy moment where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna finish. Holy cow.
There's actually a few comments about how inspiring this is. You're inspiring people to play more. You're inspiring people to go out and look for Daniel Smith walnut ink, which is always good. So a lot of inspiration happening. Thank you.
Love that. So because this is my last petal, I'm going to tie it into my branch, which is this little dot, those little tiny things that make a big difference. The little dot of the walnut ink and bloodstone genuine mix. And to that play comment, I mean, all of this started as an oops. I was learning watercolor and I think I was working through a Jean Haynes book maybe, and I had this beautiful pink on the page and too much water, came back through it, and I picked it up with a thirsty brush and I sat back and I went, well, that wasn't the exercise, oops. But then I thought, well, it's actually kind of pretty. Is there such a thing as an oops in watercolor? I don't think so. And so I thought, I wonder if I can replicate it. And I did, and I thought, well, I wonder if I made it a flower shape and then put another on top and another on top. And so that is how all of this started. It started as what could be called a mistake or a happy accident and became this sort of thing that I just absolutely love. So there's only learning, never mistakes. So I'm going to come back in and we'll just add a few little leaves maybe. Let's see. And these I'm just going to do just loosely. I put down just a little bit of water. See how that green apatite, it just explodes across the surface. I love that. Add a little blue. A little too much water. And then again, I'll tie those in, those little touches that make a big difference. Just tie them to my branch with a tiny little dot of the walnut ink and bloodstone genuine. And maybe we have one, up here. Some little loose leaves. So I like to give all of my pieces a little touch of gold. Ever since I was a kid, I loved the idea of the kintsugi, the healing broken things with gold, making them even more beautiful. So I'm going to put a little bit on with my palette knife.
And more precious.
Yes, exactly. So when I load this, I'm not just going to put a bead across the top. I'm going to make it uneven. I want it kind of broken even on the palette knife. I don't want too much. And now I'll come in maybe roughly here. So we're going to give this a little nod to the kintsugi. And I'll dry these guys so we can drop in some little gold touches. And I'm quite a fan of some little splatter at the end. I think it's just pretty.
Lowell, was that iridescent gold?
So that was iridescent gold that I used with the palette knife, and then I have my little iridescent gold here. This is my pot of gold and my old gold brush. I have no idea where this came from, but it makes the perfect little gold dots. And this really speaks to tools too. I mean, I've used everything from rocks from the yard to this little old gold brush to a pretty nice Escoda, all kinds of tools. And they're all equally equally precious, right? Put a little bit here, here. And I'm going to run the dryer one last time because if I let the gold sit here, it will soak up that walnut ink from underneath. So I want to set that. We will call that dry enough. And so that is how I have taken, we'll come back to our original inspiration, how I've taken this poem that I loved from forever ago that lived in my head. That's the trouble with Earth. Nobody talks anymore. And so we've all become a bunch of unopened love letters, the narrative to the visual. And I like to sign with a watercolor pencil. And we can peel the tape off for fun. And then if anyone plays along, you guys have any questions, if you want to revisit those mixes that I showed earlier, maybe I'll get the tape off. The ones that layer, all those swatches that I had, the layering powerhouse, anything goes.
What kind of tape do you have on that comes off so easily?
It's just called art tape. I bought it on Amazon. But yeah, it does come off pretty easily. I quite like it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any comments on the background? We're using pretty dark colors. How do we get it not too dark for the first layers?
I diluted it quite a bit. And once the plastic goes on, you know, you get a lot of nice contrast. So even if you have dark spots, you're going to have the light as well. And then, you know, the holding the white space with the rocks and practice too. I made plenty that were too dark. But I mean, to your point, that piece that we showed before, let me see if I can. Sometimes you want something dark, right? This piece was all kind of dark, but I came back in with this lamp black to bring out the contrast. So even though the background actually was quite dark, it doesn't seem that way because I added so much lamp black on top.
I love how, if you could hold that one more time, Lowell. I love how the rock negative places that you preserved are highlighting the flowers on that one and then also on the one you did today. Is that intentional?
Yes. Yeah. So I'll always sketch first. This one I actually use sticks as well. Rocks and sticks and flowers and whatever you can grab, right? I love having those organic white space shapes. And so yeah, from this sketch, that's where I determine where to place my rocks and sticks and whatnot.
Awesome. Thank you.
And this is worth mentioning as well. Hold on, I'll do my hands.
It looked like backlighting, Buffy, right?
Yes, yes.
Very pretty.
It's a wonderful touch.
Mm-hmm.
So that piece that I just showed, I'm looking for my phthalo blue swatch again. That's another really, I call it the Moody Blooms mixing set, right? So we had the terrific trio, the layering powerhouse of 5. I had so many things out today. Now I'm not finding it, but that blue. So, So phthalo blue, green shade, neutral tint, and Quinn violet are another great little combination, and that's actually what that piece that I just showed is mostly these two with maybe a touch of the clean violet and then some lamp black. And all I'm doing is taking the pigments that are already in neutral tint and just adjusting the chroma. So there's already clean violet in here, so I can bring up the lavenders, right? There's manganese blue hue is in it, but manganese blue hue will actually granulate. And so I like to use its very, very close relative, phthalo blue green shade to adjust the chroma there. So I can get denims and plums and all these beautiful colors. So that piece that we just showed used mainly these guys. So the Moody Blooms mix is another option. So when my dot card comes out, it's all about layering and combining with walnut inks, right? Or walnut ink. It's all the pigments I use for those techniques. And so there's a lot of great layering mixes in it. There's a lot of great walnut ink mixes in it. Did we lose focus again? There we go.
Very nice.
Lowell, I went out and bought some mineral paper the last time you did a demonstration for Daniel Smith.
Yeah.
And I could not keep the paper from puckering when I was doing the layered flowers. What's your technique?
Are you using a hairdryer on it?
No.
I would say you can't, I know you're not using a hairdryer, but just in case that the puckering and buckling, it will warp if you get it too hot. So you need to be careful with that. And in terms of the water, sometimes the water will do that, but it usually sits back down. Try using these backer boards. Hold on. So it might make a difference what supports you put it on. I don't know. I keep the backer boards from these I like to paint on blocks, and I used to keep these backer boards. And so maybe it's because my mineral paper is I put them on here, and maybe it likes maybe there's something electrostatic going on that it wants to stay there instead of buckle. So maybe try different support.
I will, absolutely. All right, thank you.
Yeah,
I love your demonstrations and what you're doing.
I appreciate that so much. And if you still have trouble, don't hesitate to send me a message, and we'll figure it out.
All right, thank you.
Well, what was the font used for your poem?
The font, probably Garamond. I'm imagining. Yeah, it's this Aaron Van Buren was the poet's name when I went looking. It's one of those things where. So I think I saw this sentiment on a Starbucks cup, but I cannot remember. It's such an old memory. And when I went to search for this thing that was living in my head, this is the poem that came up. So I think it came from there, this Aaron Van Buren piece. And so, yeah, I loved the inspiration and then translating that into a visual.
Thank you.
Now for some calligraphy. That would look lovely.
I should brush up my calligraphy. I love these dagger brushes for the just little loose. I love that you can make these beautiful loose marks with it, right? So that's another fun thing. Any other questions, you guys?
Loel, may you show again your rocks, please?
Oh yes. Where did I put those? Yeah, so these were just from outside. I can't even take credit for them. I think they were here when we bought the house. They're just river rocks, right? I just used river rocks. But anything will do. I even thought about cutting pieces of plastic out in a rock shape so I can get bigger ones without adding any weight. So yeah, I have little jars of rocks and sticks and twigs and everything else in the Artio, in the studio.
Very nice.
Absolutely stunning.
Thank you so much for having me. This was completely my pleasure. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Love all the input as well. Well, thank you, Loel. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. Hope to see you next Thursday. And yeah, thank you. Bye,
Thank you, Loel.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Done.
Thank you both.
Thank you.